All right, brother. Let's get into something most men don't talk about, at least not out loud. You've probably been told to be the provider, the protector, the man with a plan. And sure, all of that matters. But the truth is, what gets her attention isn't always what keeps her emotionally hooked. It's not just strength, charm, or looks. It's something deeper, something quieter, something she won't admit even to herself. Because while women are often seen as emotionally complex, there are hidden triggers, weaknesses really, that most men completely overlook. And when you miss them, you chase when you should hold still. You explain when you should stay silent. You give when you should pull back. And she pulls away. Not because you weren't enough, but because you gave too much of the wrong thing. But when you learn to move different, when you stop reacting and start observing, when you stop proving and start embodying, that's when the shift happens. That's when she starts feeling
something she can't explain. That's when you become the man who no longer has to chase because you've become the standard. In this video, we're going to break down 10 of the most overlooked psychological switches in a woman's mind. These are not surface-level tricks. They're deep emotional patterns. And when you understand them, you stop guessing. You stop negotiating. You start leading with quiet power that speaks louder than any pickup line ever could. So, if you've ever felt like you were doing everything right, but still getting left on red, if you've ever watched her lose interest the moment you started caring more, or if you've ever wondered why some men barely try but still leave a lasting mark, this is your wake-up call. Let's get into it. Number 1. The one emotion. She tries to hide but can't around you. She'll laugh. She'll brush it off. She'll act like she's unaffected. But there's one emotion most women feel around a certain kind of man. And no matter how calm, confident, or the steadfast man, why being consistent makes you irresistible, controlled she appears, she can't hide it. It's uncertainty, not confusion, not chaos. I'm talking about that internal shift she feels when you walk into a room, speak with intention, and don't try to prove a single thing about yourself. When she looks at you and realizes she can't read you, she doesn't know exactly where she stands. And that right there is what creates the emotional current she can't escape. See, most men are too obvious. They wear everything on their sleeves. They compliment too soon. They text too fast. They need to be liked before they're even respected. And because of that, women read them in minutes. They know exactly what's coming. No tension, no mystery, no polarity. But the man who's calm in his presence, who doesn't rush, doesn't chase, doesn't over-explain, he creates a feeling she can't fully name. It's not fear. It's not insecurity. It's that subtle, nagging question in the back of her mind. Why do I want to know what he's thinking? That's the beginning of emotional tension. And here's the truth. She tries to hide it. She'll distract herself. Scroll. Talk fast. Change the subject. But her body tells on her. She leans in more than usual. She watches your reactions. She slows down without realizing it, because now you've disrupted her emotional autopilot. You've made her feel something she didn't plan to feel. And for women who are used to being in control of the conversation, the mood, the dynamic, that emotion catches them off guard. That's why she hides it. Not confidence. The key to unlocking her attraction, because she's manipulating, but because for the first time in a long time, she's not driving the experience. And let me be clear, this doesn't come from being mean or withholding or playing games. It comes from knowing that you don't need to entertain, impress, or chase to create connection. You just need to be rooted. When a man is rooted, when his energy doesn't spike with praise or shrink with rejection, a woman has no choice but to feel herself in his presence. That's the shift. That's the one emotion she can't hide. Because here's what no one told you. Most women don't fall for what they see in a man. They fall for how they feel about themselves when they're around him. And when your energy is calm, consistent, centered, she feels unsettled in the best way. She starts asking, "Why do I want more of him?" Even though you haven't done anything loud, even though you haven't revealed your cards, even though you haven't said more than a few words? Because power doesn't always speak. Sometimes it just is, and when it's real, she feels it. Now, let's bring in a bit of Stoicism here. Seneca said, "The greatest power is often simple presence." He wasn't talking about force. He was talking about being calm, undistracted, unmoved. And that's exactly the kind of presence that brings out the emotion she tries to suppress. Not because you're triggering insecurity, but because you're offering something she doesn't see. Often a man who's clear but not eager, present but not pressing, open but not performing. That's what makes her wonder. That's what shifts her energy. That's what makes her react to you internally, even when she's silent externally. So, if you've ever had a moment where ambition, why women are drawn to men with goals, you noticed her behavior shift, where she got a little quieter, a little slower, maybe even a little thrown off by your stillness. You saw it, that emotion she couldn't hide. It wasn't about your words, it was about your state. And if you're stepping into that state now, not trying to be mysterious, but just refusing to be reactive, drop this in the comments. I own the silence, because the man who no longer needs to prove himself is the one who reveals everything without saying a word. Number 2. Why emotional presence is her silent obsession. It's not your looks. It's not your job. It's not your charm, your car, or how many books you've read. What gets under her skin, what she can't stop noticing, even when she tries to ignore it, is your emotional presence. Most men think attraction is built on talking, on action, on showing effort. But the truth is, a woman feels your presence before she ever hears your voice. And when your energy says, "I'm here, I'm grounded, and I'm not trying to prove anything," it speaks louder than any words could. See, women live in the emotional realm. They're constantly scanning for signals. Your posture, your tone, your reactions, your stillness. They're tuned in to the subtle. And the man who is fully present, undistracted, unfazed, aware, becomes magnetic without needing to say a thing. Because emotional presence isn't about intensity. It's not about staring into her soul or trying to be deep. It's about being fully here, not pulled into your head, not performing, just the bad boy. Why a bit of mystery keeps her hooked present. And you'd be surprised how rare that is. Most guys aren't really there. They're anticipating. They're reacting. They're planning what to say next. They're scanning for her approval. And women can feel that, even if you think you're hiding it. But a man who doesn't flinch when she gets emotional, who doesn't chase her mood, who isn't uncomfortable with silence, that man feels like a rock in the middle of chaos. And that rock, whether she admits it or not, is exactly what she wants to lean against. Here's why. When you're emotionally present, she feels seen without having to perform. She doesn't need to act a certain way to get your attention. She doesn't have to guess what version of you is going to show up because your energy is steady, unshaken. And that steadiness, that calm, makes her feel safe, not protected in the physical sense. Safe to be feminine, safe to soften, safe to stop trying to control every moment. That's when her guard drops. That's when her voice slows. That's when she starts reacting to you with respect instead of resistance. Because when you're emotionally present, you're not needy. You're not there to be validated. You're there because you choose to be, not because you need to be. And that shifts everything. Now, you're not just a man she talks to. You're a space she enters, a rhythm she tunes into, an energy she keeps coming back to, even if she doesn't know why. Let's go even deeper. Presence means you're no longer thinking about outcome. You're no longer worried about what she'll think. You're not reacting to her emotions. You're just aware of them. And in that awareness, you become her emotional mirror, not her emotional puppet. She feels safe not because you told her to, but because you didn't crumble when she got cold. You didn't chase when she pulled away. You didn't try to fill the silence. You let her be and you stayed being. That contrast is powerful because most men either overstep or withdraw. They try too hard to connect or they ghost completely. But emotional presence, it sits in the middle. It watches without tension. It listens without jumping in. It holds the moment, no matter how heavy it gets. And women, they become obsessed with that because it's rare, because it's real, because in a world full of men trying to get something, you're the man who's already full. And when you're full, you're not chasing love. You're extending stability. Let's bring it back to Stoicism. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." Presence is listening, not just to her words, but to her energy. And when she realizes you see her without losing yourself in her, she doesn't forget it. So, if you're learning to stop reacting, to slow your pace, to let her come to you while you stay rooted in who you are, type this in the comments. I choose presence because the man who doesn't need to chase her emotions is the one who pulls her in without ever raising his voice. Number 3, how your absence triggers her need for validation. Let me ask you something. Have you ever gone silent? Not out of spite, not to play games, but just to protect your peace. And suddenly, she starts reaching out again. That's not random. That's not coincidence. That's the power of absence. See, when you're always available, always explaining, always checking in, you become predictable. And predictability for most women slowly kills curiosity. But the moment you pull back, genuinely, not performatively, her brain starts to work overtime. She doesn't know where you are emotionally. She doesn't know what you're thinking. She doesn't know if she still holds your attention. And that lack of certainty, that's what flips the switch. Suddenly, your silence becomes louder than any message. And whether she admits it or not, she starts craving an answer to a question she didn't even know she was asking. Am I still important to him? That's the moment where your absence doesn't just register, it echoes. But here's what most men get wrong. They think pulling back is about making her chase. Ignored attention. How to use scarcity to increase your value. They try to create distance as a tactic. They act cold, hoping it'll get her attention. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the kind of absence that comes from a man who's finally centered, who's no longer performing, who's not trying to fix what wasn't broken. A man who walks away not to provoke her, but to return to himself. That absence, that clean break from neediness, from over-explaining, from emotional pursuit. That's what causes the real shift in her, because now she becomes the one unsure. She starts wondering if you still care. And ironically, that uncertainty makes her reflect on your value in a way your presence never could. Here's why. When you were constantly available, she had a mirror in front of her, but she wasn't really looking into it. She was too busy reacting, testing, assuming you'd always be there. But when the mirror disappears, when the reflection is gone, she starts asking the deeper questions, and that's when she starts scrolling through your old messages. That's when she lingers on your stories just long enough for you to notice. That's when the accidental texts appear, or the casual likes, or the questions that sound harmless, but are really just checking your emotional temperature. Because here's the truth. Most women won't admit they don't just want your attention. They want to know they still have influence over you. And when you stop giving them that feedback loop, they reach to get it back. This is when her need for validation kicks in. Not because she's shallow, not because she's manipulative, but because she's human and your absence broke the rhythm she got comfortable dancing to. And that's where your power is. Not in punishing her, not in ignoring her out of ego, but in realizing that sometimes silence teaches louder than words ever could. Let's ground this in Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. Your absence isn't about controlling her behavior. It's about refusing to abandon your peace just to hold on to someone who hasn't earned it. And when you finally choose that she feels it, she may not like it, but she respects it because you're not trying to be mysterious. You've just stopped giving your energy away to see if you still matter. And ironically, that's what makes her wonder. So, if you've reached the point where you're no longer trying to explain your value, no longer chasing clarity from someone who couldn't meet you in presence, drop this in the comments. I choose distance because the man who walks away without needing attention is the one she watches more closely than ever before. Number 4, the masculine calm that makes her collapse emotionally. She can raise her voice, she can roll her eyes, she can challenge you with words that bite or retreat into silence that dares you to chase. But when you meet all of that with one thing, masculine calm something inside her begins to collapse. Not in defeat, not in weakness, but in surrender. Because here's the truth she won't say out loud. Most women are used to leading emotional tension. They're used to being the emotional thermostat. They escalate, they withdraw, they control the rhythm of the exchange. And most men, they follow. They match her energy. They react, defend, explain, or lose composure trying to win her back into softness. But the man who doesn't rise to that chaos, who doesn't need to prove anything in the heat of emotion, who stays grounded when the conversation feels unstable, that man breaks her pattern completely because now she doesn't know what to do with your stillness. She doesn't know how to rattle you. She doesn't know how to steer the conversation where she's emotionally in charge. And in that confusion, she softens. Because what you're showing her is rare. You're not just a man who listens. You're a man who doesn't need her mood to validate his frame. You can handle the fire without losing your center. And that makes her feel something deeper than attraction. It makes her feel safe. Not in the surface way, but in the way that lets her take off the armor. Because here's what most men don't understand. A woman doesn't open up to loud confidence. She opens up to quiet certainty. She lets go around the man who doesn't get pulled into her storms. She collapses, not because you broke her down, but because your calm gave her pre-selection, the power of being desired by other women. Permission to stop trying so hard to stay guarded. And let's be clear, this isn't passive. You're not cold. You're not disconnected. You're simply unavailable for emotional chaos. You don't shut down. You just refuse to give your energy to anything that pulls you out of integrity. And that calm, that self-control, that lack of emotional neediness, that's what shifts her from defense to desire. Because now you're not playing the same game. You're not trying to fix her emotions. You're not begging for her to understand you. You're standing still, grounded in your values, rooted in your peace, and she feels it. Let's put this in real terms. She might come at you with heat. She might test your tone, your limits, your silence. And when you don't react, when you pause before you speak, when you lower your voice instead of raise it, that contrast jolts her nervous system in a way she didn't expect. And she remembers it. Because now you're no longer just a man. You're a presence. You're a space. You're a mirror that doesn't move. And when a woman meets a mirror that doesn't move, she begins to see herself. She begins to trust the stillness. And that trust turns into surrender. Now, let's anchor this in Stoicism. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Your calm is a form of power, not because it silences her, but because it silences you first. It keeps you from acting out of fear, pride, or insecurity. And when she sees that you don't flinch when you stay in control of your emotional energy no matter what storm she throws, she starts feeling something she can't intellectualize. Respect, safety, a pull toward you that's no longer based on attraction, but on surrender. So if you're done reacting to chaos, done raising your voice, done trying to win her attention by losing your center type, this in the comments. I lead with calm because the man who doesn't rise to emotional war wins by never entering the battlefield at all. Number 5, when she feels you don't need her, she leans in. Let's be honest, brother. Most men were raised to believe that the more you give, the more she'll stay. That if you prove your loyalty, show your devotion, and make her the center of your world, she'll finally see your value. But here's what really happens. The moment she senses you need her more than she needs you, the dynamic flips, and not in your favor. Neediness repels. It puts pressure on her. It makes her feel responsible for your emotional balance. And deep down, that's not what she's drawn to. She doesn't want to be your reason for peace. She wants to feel attracted to your peace without her. When a woman feels you're emotionally dependent on her, something subtle breaks. Not because she's heartless, but because the weight of being your source isn't romantic. It's exhausting. It feels like pressure disguised as affection. But when she feels that you don't need her, not in a cold, detached, dismissive way, but in a deeply grounded, I'm complete either way energy, something shifts inside her. She starts leaning in because now your attention feels like a gift, not a grasp. Your time feels chosen, not owed. And your presence, it becomes valuable because it's no longer guaranteed. You see people chase what they can't quite secure. And when you stop signaling that you're emotionally available at all times, when you stop trying to fill silence with reassurance, when you stop needing her reactions to validate your worth, you become the mystery she wants to solve. Again, that's the paradox. The less you need her, the more she starts thinking about you. Not because you're playing games, but because your self-sufficiency becomes magnetic. Here's the deeper truth most men miss. Women don't want to be your everything. They want to feel like they've earned a place in a life that's already full. And when you stop making her your emotional project, when you stop seeking her for completion, when you're simply living your life with or without her, that's when she starts wondering, why is he okay without me? Why do I want back in when he's not asking me to stay? Why does his distance feel heavier than my presence? That's when masculinity, why women want emotionally strong men. The leaning begins. She starts responding quicker. She pays closer attention. She tries harder but subtly. Not with words but with energy, with softness, with initiative, with a pull she can't quite explain. And here's the key. This only works when it's authentic. You're not faking detachment. You're not pretending to be busy. You're actually centered in your purpose. You've got your own life. You've got places to be. You're emotionally full, with or without her. That's what makes your attention powerful again, not because you withhold it, but because it's no longer cheap. Let's bring in Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself and your way of thinking. You don't need her to complete you. You're not waiting for her to approve of your worth. You already have it. And that's why she starts wanting back into the space you no longer offer freely. She doesn't lean in because you ignore her. She leans in because you no longer orbit around her. You're the sun now. You radiate with or without her presence. And she feels that shift more deeply than any compliment or message ever could. So, if you're done trying to prove your value, if you're done showing her you care by overgiving, If you're choosing your peace, your presence, your purpose over chasing validation, drop this in the comments. I need nothing. Because the man who's complete without her is the one she fights hardest not to lose. Number 6. The quiet power of being unavailable at the right time. Let's talk about timing, not in terms of when to call or when to text back, but something far more powerful. The strategic stillness, the well-timed absence, the quiet power of being unavailable at the right time. See, most guys think consistency means always being there, always replying, always showing up, always saying yes. And while consistency matters, availability without boundaries breeds indifference. When she knows she can reach you anytime, anywhere, under any condition, you stop being a presence. You start becoming a background feature. And women don't crave what they can predict. They crave what they feel. And timing plays a massive role in emotional impact. Now, here's where it gets real. It's not about ignoring her. It's not about disappearing to get attention. It's about recognizing that your availability loses value when it's always assumed. You could have the most attractive energy in the world, but if you give it away every time she blinks, she won't feel it anymore. But when you learn the art of intentional unavailability, something shifts. She starts noticing the space. She starts paying attention to when you're there and when you're not. And in that contrast, your presence becomes memorable again. Let me give you an example. Let's say she's used to you responding in minutes. One day you don't. Not because you're punishing her, but because you're in your life, focused, moving, grounded, and she feels it. Not just the silence, but the lack of pursuit behind it. She doesn't get a, "Hey, sorry, just saw this." She doesn't get a play-by-play of your day. She gets space, stillness, ambiguity, and in that gap, her thoughts spiral. Not in panic, but in curiosity. Why hasn't he replied? Is he pulling away? Did I say something? She'll scan her last message. She'll check your social. She'll replay your tone in her mind. And all of that isn't about control. It's about mystery born from restraint. Because emotional power isn't loud. It doesn't beg. It doesn't demand. It lets silence do the work. And the man who understands that he doesn't have to withdraw permanently, that tells her you're not just trying to be chosen. You're deciding who fits your life. And that's rare. Most guys rush to secure her, to validate her, to prove that they're not like the rest. But the man who already knows his worth doesn't rush. He observes. He lets her show up fully before he invests emotionally. And that slow, steady energy, it tells her something primal. If other women want him, maybe I should lean in before someone else does. That's pre-selection in action. Not loud, not obvious, just undeniable. So, if you're out here thinking the only way to win her over is to chase harder, text faster, or convince her you're the best choice, pause. Ask yourself, would another high-V value you woman want to be around me right now? And if the answer is no, maybe it's not about getting her attention. Maybe it's about becoming the kind of man who attracts it without even trying. Because that's the power. That's the advantage. That's the leverage of a man who's already been chosen and still chooses carefully. If that landed with you and you're done trying to prove you're worth something, type this in the comments to lock it in. I attract naturally because when you stop needing to be picked and start moving like someone already valued you, change the energy completely. Let's keep going. Masculinity. Why women want emotionally strong. Men, number 7. Masculinity. Why women want emotionally strong men. Let's clear something up right away. Masculinity has nothing to do with being aggressive, loud, emotionally unavailable, or trying to dominate every room you walk into. That's a cheap imitation. Real masculinity, the kind women are deeply drawn to, is quiet. It's steady. It's calm in the chaos. And above all, it's built on emotional strength. Now, what does that actually mean? Emotional strength isn't about pretending nothing bothers you. It's about knowing exactly what does and not letting it control you. It's about owning your feelings without being consumed by them. And it's about standing firm when things get hard, not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you know who you are. This is the kind of man women feel safe around, not just physically, but emotionally. He doesn't react to every provocation. He doesn't spiral when challenged. He doesn't crumble the moment someone pulls away. He's grounded, not perfect, just centered. That's what masculinity looks like at its highest level: emotional sovereignty. C. The emotionally strong man doesn't suppress what he feels. He just doesn't broadcast every wave that hits him. He processes. He reflects. He stays aware, but he never lets temporary emotion dictate permanent behavior. And in today's world, that kind of man stands out. Because let's be honest, we live in a culture where outrage is rewarded, where overreaction is normal, and where emotional volatility is often mistaken for authenticity. But deep down, both men and women crave the opposite. They want consistency. They want clarity. They want someone who can walk through fire without losing his form. And that's why emotionally strong men are so attractive. They don't chase chaos. They stabilize it. They bring a presence that calms the room, not because they're the loudest, but because their energy doesn't flinch. Women feel that on a deep level, even if they don't always articulate it. It's not just about how you look or what you own. It's how you carry yourself, how you respond when things don't go your way, how you speak when you're hurt, how you hold the line when you're tested. That's what makes a woman lean in. That's what earns trust. Not charm, not status, stability. Let's ground this in Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside." Vince, realize this, and you will find strength. That's the core of masculine energy. Not control over others, but full command of yourself. The ability to stay steady even when emotions run high. That's what separates you. That's what she's drawn to. Now, here's what happens when you lack that strength. You get needy. You overexpress. You vent when what you really need is stillness. You push her for answers she's not ready to give. You try to solve emotions with action because you haven't learned how to just feel and hold. And over time, that creates pressure. It makes her feel like she has to manage your emotional state. And nothing kills attraction faster than that. The emotionally weak man thinks intensity will win her over. The emotionally strong man knows restraint is more powerful. It's in the pause before you speak, the calm when she pulls away, the way you own your part in a conflict without losing yourself to guilt. That energy, it's rare, it's masculine, and it's deeply attractive. Women don't want a man who never feels. They want a man who doesn't flee from what he feels. They want to see that you have a full emotional world, but that you lead yourself through it, that you don't collapse under pressure, that you're a rock but not a wall. So, if you've been told that showing emotion is weakness, or that masculinity is about being detached, forget that. The truth is, real strength is about integration. Feeling deeply, holding firmly, acting intentionally. And if you've been in situations where your emotions controlled your tone, your decisions, or your ability to stay grounded, it's not shame. It's a signal, a chance to level up. Because emotional strength isn't something you're born with. It's built brick by brick, boundary by boundary. And when you walk in that strength, when you stop being driven by reaction and start leading with awareness, the women around you feel the difference. So if this is the season you stop chasing intensity and start choosing presence, write this in the comments. I lead myself. Because once you master your emotions, you don't just become more attractive, you become untouchable. Let's keep going. Number 8, charismatic leadership. How to lead and charismatic leadership. How to lead and make her follow, make her follow. Let's get something straight. Leadership in relationships isn't about barking orders, being alpha, or controlling someone's every move. That's insecurity in disguise. Real leadership, the kind that draws a woman in and earns her trust over time, is subtle, grounded, and most of all, charismatic. And here's what most men miss. Leadership isn't something you demand. It's something you embody. You don't get her to follow by telling her where to go. You do it by knowing where you're going, making the path so compelling, so clear, so full of purpose that she naturally wants to walk beside you. Charisma is not about being loud. It's about presence. It's not about always having the answer. It's about knowing how to carry uncertainty without falling apart. When a man leads with composure, vision, and purpose, it does something to the people around him, especially women. She feels safe, not just physically, but emotionally, because she can trust his direction, not just his words. A charismatic leader doesn't dominate. He influences. He listens more than he speaks. He takes responsibility when things go wrong. He sets the tone in a room not with volume, but with certainty. He doesn't beg for validation. He doesn't over-explain his intentions. He knows what he values, and he moves like it. That's what makes her want to follow. Not because she's weak, but because he's strong enough to carry vision, not just for himself, but for both of them. Let me be clear. Women don't follow men just because they're ambitious or confident. They follow men who make decisions with integrity, who stay composed under pressure, and who can navigate life's unpredictability without losing control. That's the kind of leadership that inspires, not commands. Let's pull in some Stoic grounding. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That's it. By being, not talking, not pretending, not performing. Just living with such discipline and presence that she doesn't need to be convinced. You become undeniable. Here's what that looks like in real life. You're the one who chooses the plan. Not because you have to be in control, but because you care enough to think ahead. You handle conflict without getting reactive. You're the one who knows when to speak and when to pause. When things feel chaotic, you become calmer, not louder. And maybe most importantly, you know when to walk away from chaos altogether. A true leader doesn't try to lead someone who refuses to be led. He doesn't chase connection from someone who won't meet him halfway. Charismatic leadership isn't about pulling someone along. It's about creating a standard so clear that only the right woman wants to match it. And yes, she might push back at first. She might test you. She wants to feel that your leadership isn't just surface level, that it holds under tension, that it doesn't fold when challenged. That's natural. And that's where most men collapse. They take resistance personally instead of treating it like proof that their presence is being felt. If she challenges you good, that means she sees your potential. What she's really asking is, can I trust where you're going? And your answer is never in your words. It's in how you carry yourself when tested. The truth is, women crave direction, but not from just any man. From a man whose life has structure, whose values don't shift depending on who's watching. From a man who knows his lane and stays in it with clarity. That energy, it's rare. It's magnetic. And it's not something you chase, it's something you become. So, if you've been asking yourself how to lead in a way that makes her want to follow, stop looking outward. Start building inward. Get clear on your values. Get firm in your tone. Get honest about where you're headed, and then move. You don't need to explain your vision to be respected. You just need to live it. If that landed with you and you're done apologizing for being a man with direction, type this in the comments and wear it with pride. I lead forward because when leadership comes from presence, not pressure, it doesn't just attract her, it elevates everything around you. Let's keep going. Number 9. Emotional intelligence. The secret to building a deep connection intelligence. The secret to building a deep connection. Let's be real. Most people can hold a conversation, but very few know how to create connection. They know, how to talk, how to share facts, how to fill silence. But when it comes to emotional depth, when it comes to reading the room, sensing unspoken tension, or navigating conflict with grace, that's where they fall flat. And that's exactly why emotional intelligence is a game-changer. It's not just a nice trait to have. It's not about being in touch with your feelings in some soft, passive way. Emotional intelligence is strength. It's presence. It's power not over others, but over yourself and the men who have it. They don't have to say much to create impact. The room adjusts to them. The energy calms around them. And women, they notice it immediately because, let's face it, attraction gets her attention. But emotional intelligence earns her respect. It makes her feel safe, seen, understood, and that feeling is rare. Most men react emotionally, but think they're being rational. Most speak from ego and call it honesty. But when you meet a man who can feel everything without being controlled by anything, it's magnetic. So, what does emotional intelligence look like in action? It's the ability to pause before reacting. It's choosing your tone instead of letting it choose you. It's being able to say, I hear you even when you don't agree. It's reading between the lines, not just her words, but her silences. And it's the ability to hold emotional tension without needing to fix it right away, just holding it. And you know what's wild? Most women have never experienced that. They've dealt with guys who shut down when things get deep, guys who get defensive the moment they're questioned, guys who panic the second emotions show up. So when they meet a man who can stay with it, who can handle discomfort without running, he stands out. She doesn't have to say, "Can I be real with him?" She just knows. That's the real flex. Now, here's the mistake a lot of men make. They confuse emotional intelligence with being passive. They think it means absorbing everything, always giving in or holding space until they disappear. No, that's emotional submission, not intelligence. A strong man with high EQ knows how to validate without enabling. He knows when to listen and when to draw the line. He stays calm but never small. That balance, that's what builds connection. Because at the end of the day, connection isn't built by intensity. It's built by consistency. She doesn't fall for the man who explodes with passion. She falls for the one who can meet her where she is without judgment or fear. The one who doesn't panic when emotions get messy. The one who's clear on his own inner world and doesn't need her to manage it for him. And this isn't just about romantic connection. Emotional intelligence elevates everything. Your career, your friendships, your ability to lead, because it's the foundation of relational gravity. The ability to influence without pressure, to connect without control, to lead without ego. Let's bring in the Stoic view. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." And emotional adversity, conflict, tension, vulnerability, that's where most men prove nothing. They check out, they blame, they run. But the emotionally intelligent man, he stays, he listens, he feels, he grows. And when a woman sees that she's not just impressed, she's disarmed because now she knows she can stop performing. She can stop protecting herself every second. She can breathe around you. And when a woman feels that when she feels emotionally safe in your presence, it opens the door to something deeper than attraction. It builds something she can actually trust. So, if you're tired of surface-level connections, tired of conversations that never lead anywhere, tired of being told you're nice but never deeply remembered, this is where everything shifts. Build your emotional intelligence, not to win her, but to master you. And if this clicked with you, if you're ready to stop reacting and start leading through presence, lock it in by commenting below. I stay aware because connection isn't built through force. It's built through understanding, and the man who understands himself becomes the man every woman remembers. Let's finish strong. Number 10. Passionate interests. Passionate interests. Why purpose and passion make you magnetic. Why purpose and passion make you magnetic. Let's end this list with what might be the most underrated trait of all. No, it's not looks. It's not money. It's not charm. It's passion. Real, deep personal passion. A fire for something that exists completely outside of her. A purpose that drives you whether or not she's in the picture. That's what makes you magnetic. You want to know why. Because most people, men and women alike, are drifting. They wake up, check their phone, go to work, scroll, eat, sleep, repeat. Their days look like copies of the day before. No direction, no deeper reason. So when a woman meets a man who's lit up by something, anything, she feels that difference immediately. She sees a man who's not waiting for life to happen to him. He's building something, creating, moving. That energy, it's rare, it's powerful. You don't need to be famous. You don't need to be rich. But when you talk about the thing that keeps you alive, and your eyes change, your voice deepens, your whole presence shifts. She feels that she sees a man who's not just passing time. He's in it. And that's where the magic happens. Because when you're passionate about something that has nothing to do with impressing her, it makes you attractive in a way that's not performative. It's not about trying to win her approval. It's about showing her that you already have something bigger than this moment. Something that defines you. Something that keeps you aligned when everything else gets messy. It could be music, building a business, martial arts, writing, teaching, traveling, leading your community. Doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that it's yours, that it's real, that you'd still be doing it if no one applauded, because that's the kind of passion that can't be faked and can't be ignored. And here's the twist. Purpose makes everything else easier. You stop chasing. You stop overthinking. You stop measuring your worth through how much attention you're getting because you're already full. You've already found something that makes your time feel valuable. And when a woman senses that you're not desperate for her to fill your day, your mind, or your identity, she leans in. Not because she wants to complete you, but because she sees you already complete. That's what turns heads. Not effort, not smooth lines. Presence built through purpose. And purpose does something else too. It makes you more emotionally grounded because every setback doesn't hit as hard. You've got something to return to. A structure, a direction, a mission that's bigger than temporary feelings. When the world gets chaotic, or when relationships feel uncertain, you don't unravel, you refocus. That's Stoicism in action. Seneca said, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable. You need a direction. You need something pulling you forward, because without that, you drift. And when you drift, people feel it. You start looking for identity in places you should never surrender. Attention, approval, short-term validation. But when you're locked into a purpose, you're not easily shaken. You don't need to chase connection. You become connection. You don't need to ask for respect. You move in a way that commands it. And look, this doesn't mean you ignore people, or you stay so focused on your mission that you become emotionally unavailable. It means that your passion becomes a foundation, something you share, not something you give up. And the woman who truly respects you, she'll want to be around that fire, not tame it, not compete with it, just admire it, and maybe grow because of it. So, if you've been waiting for someone to give you purpose or looking for a relationship to make you feel alive, flip that story. Find your thing. Build your lane. Make your day so full of meaning that anyone who comes into your life is stepping into something that already matters. Because the most attractive thing about a man isn't his looks, his lifestyle, or his status. It's the way he lives. And when you live with purpose, passion, and direction, you don't have to chase anyone. You pull people in without even trying. If that truth hit deep, if you're ready to stop drifting and start building, type this in the comments and own it. I move with purpose. Because when passion drives you, you don't just get attention, you earn respect. And that's what keeps the right ones close. And that's it. 10 traits, 10 psychological switches that. Conclusion. Women respond to whether they admit it or not. This isn't about manipulation. This isn't about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about becoming a man who's so grounded in who he is, in what he values, in how he moves that he no longer chases attention. He draws it. And here's the truth. None of this works if you're faking it. Confidence, ambition, emotional strength, purpose. They only hold weight if they're real, built, lived, earned. So don't just watch this and agree. Choose one thing, apply it, live it, and let who you're becoming speak louder than anything you could ever say. If this video gave you clarity, if it challenged the way you see yourself and what you bring to the table, subscribe to the channel. More content is on the way. Always grounded, always sharp, and always focused on helping you lead your life with purpose. I'll see you in tomorrow's video.